Hi, this is Beth Azor, and this is my podcast, I Own a Shopping Center, Now What? So today I want to speak about delinquencies. I know I have spoken about this before. It's super important, and I'm going through a situation that I thought I would share with you all. So we have, I think, around 75 tenants, more or less. And as I shared with you, my bookkeeper sends me an aging report on the 10th of the month and the 20th of the month. And we have a current situation. So I only have one tenant on the aging report. We are very diligent in getting rents on time. If sometimes when I buy properties, I inherit leases that have grace periods. I hate grace periods. As I've shared, if I'm negotiating a lease and the tenant insists on a grace period, I will say to them, great, your rent is due on the 20th of the month. I'll give you a 10-day grace period. My mortgage is due on the 1st and I need rent on the 1st. I don't always win the negotiation, but I prove my point and I really fight hard to not have a grace period. In the state of Florida, we have to send a 3-day notice if someone is late in rent. So I always tell them, that's your grace period. You get 3-day notice. And I can't evict you after 3 days. We have to go through an eviction process. So you still have time. So I really fight hard to not have the grace period. I say to them in the lease negotiations, your rent's due on the 1st. I'm telling you it's due on the 1st. Pay on the 1st. When we acquire a property and we see by the delinquency reports, which, by the way, is a very crucial piece of due diligence that you need to get when you're buying shopping centers. So you can see, you're buying the property based on the NOI and the income, but it would be a terrible surprise to find out after you closed that 3 of the 10 tenants are 3 months behind in rent. And basically at that point, it's easier for a tenant to move out than it would be for them to catch up. So make sure in your due diligence you get the aging or the delinquency report. So we have a situation currently that I have a tenant that does not have a lot of infrastructure in the space, which, as you guys know, I've talked about this before, it's way easier for them to move out when they don't have a lot of infrastructure. And this was a woman who had a baby, and the baby was in ICU for a long time and just couldn't focus on the business. The business remained open, but it was a very trying time. So, of course, I was a human being, and I said, don't worry about the rent. We'll figure it out later. And eventually the baby came in and out of ICU. But about a year later now, the baby's fine. Also, the woman's mom had some issues also. And we've been very empathetic, sympathetic. However, her rent is about $6,000 a month, and she owes us over $45,000 at this point. So absolutely, it would be easier for her to just move out than to try to catch up. Their lease is up in 2 years, and even if she pays $2,000 a month over her rent, which I don't think she can afford to do, it's probably going to be a problem unless I make a major decision and waive some of the balance. So I'm meeting with her next week. Obviously, occupancy plays a big part in this. We are about to sign 2 leases this week that will take the property to 100%. Now, as you guys know, this is a retailer. It's very hard to find retailers, pure retailers, and I love the use and I would like them to stay. So probably what I'm going to do is make a deal with them that they pay something towards the back, but I'll take away their option. They have a 1-5-year option, and have the right to terminate with 6 months notice if I find another tenant that would pay more rent, kind of putting me more in charge of the situation. And then giving them 6 months notice, I think, is very fair. They can certainly find another location within 6 months. And that's probably more onerous for me. Maybe I'll do a 3-month notice. maybe I'll start with 3 months and see if they'll accept that, which they really don't have a choice. So, but putting myself in control and then starting to collect monthly sales, which we don't get now. I may find that they're killing it and they're just playing a game with me. And then that obviously would change the dialogue. I don't think that's the case in this situation, but it certainly has happened in the past where a tenant has tried to snow me and has succeeded in that. So I'm going to collect sales. I'm going to remove the option, and I will have the right to terminate based on if I can find another tenant, being that the center is 100% leased. And then in exchange for all of those things, I will work on, waiving part of the balance at the end of the lease term. So that's how I'm going to handle this situation. And someone asked me a question in the DMs recently about this, about what to do in a situation where you have a big balance. So that's how I'm handling it. But back to due diligence and buying a property. When you buy a property, I've shared this before, what our process is, we go in and we tell the tenants immediately after closing an acquisition, you have 90 days to start paying your rent on the 1st and to abide by your lease. And if we create a chart to find out who has grace periods, what the late fees are, and we send a letter and we say, "Dear tenant, we see by your tenant ledger you've been paying on average by the 18th of the month. Your rent is due on the 1st. You have a grace period of 5 days, and your late fee is 18%. Starting 90 days from now," so we would pick the month, like starting January 1st, on the 6th of the month, if we don't have your rent payment, you will be charged the 18%. And we give them 3 months to get their act in gear. And I remind them, I go into the tenant spaces often and I say, don't forget, you need to get your rent in. And then we don't waive it. They have heard threats before. It's very important that you don't waive it. And even if they don't pay it, which a lot of times they don't pay it, it stays on their ledger. And it's something I could, waive in the future or collect when they sell their business. I've done that a lot, where all of a sudden they want to assign the lease and sell their business and they have a bunch of late fees on their ledger and they have to clean that up to be able to have the right to sell their business because they're in default if they have a delinquency. So I try to never waive late fees and just keep them accruing on their ledger. Additionally, it's important to make sure that you are understanding what the delinquencies are, what they're made up of, what's behind the delinquency, talking to the tenant, having a dialogue, and whether it's you or your property managers, just really understanding what's going on so you have a handle on the situation. Alternatively, and that's mostly when I'm talking about local tenants, with national tenants, I find when I consult and I look at, or when I'm buying a shopping center and I look at an aging report, a lot of national tenants haven't paid their CAM reconciliation for the last 2 years, or their new estimates that you're charging them because real estate taxes went up because after you purchased, the taxes changed. And what I do with national tenants is, especially with the CAM rec situation, we'll send it out, they'll ask questions, they'll ask for information, we'll send it. We'll do that round 2 or 3 times. And then after that, it's been 3 months, I just 3-day them. In Florida, that's what you can do. You 3-day notice them, we send it to their legal department, and pretty much at that point, I get paid. I see aging reports where there's 12 months for a national coffee chain or national Mexican food chain that the estimate, they never paid the new estimates. And so you've got to get their attention, and the way to get their attention is to send it to their legal department and get that cleaned up. So that is my input today on aging, on delinquencies, on handling local tenants versus national tenants, and just by getting tough and having a process of how to get rent. Because a lot of times landlords do cause their own vacancies. When you let a tenant pay rent late and accrue a balance, like I'm doing with this one retailer, it's just easier for them to move out and you're creating your own vacancy. And many times you really probably don't want to do that. So I hope this helped. And if you like the podcast, share it, please. Like it, subscribe, and all that jazz. And if you are interested in learning more about investing and you are a female, check out the Women Investor Summit, March 4th through the 6th. We have 67 tickets left. The women that attend love it, say it's life-changing. For you guys that listen to the podcast, which I think 80% of you are guys, send your wives, send your daughters, send your mothers. We do have a mother-daughter discount. Last year, I think we had 9 mother-daughter teams come, which was amazing. We want to get the next generation investing earlier. So have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week. Hey, listeners of I Own a Shopping Center, Now What? We have done some research, and we have found out that 92% of the listeners are men in the ages of 50 to 70. So what I wanted to do is shout out to all of you. Thank you for listening. But I wanted to shout out to all of you. If you have a wife or a sister or a daughter, I have a conference every year in March called the Women's Real Estate Investment Summit. There are 250 women that attend, and probably 75% of them are investors in all kinds of different asset classes. We've had women that are fix and flippers, women that have invested in storage, hospitality, student housing, of course, retail, and you name it, senior living, multiple different asset classes, car wash funds. And the women in the room, what I do is I interview women that are investors, and then those women go into breakout rooms and do like a deep dive on how they underwrite their deals, multifamily, etc. And a lot of the women in the room have started investing with each other, which is great, which is helping my goal and mission of getting more women to invest in commercial real estate. But if you have a wife, a daughter, a sister, a mother, that maybe you want them to learn a little bit more about the industry, or maybe they're running your properties with you, have them come. It's March 4th through the 6th. We opened registration last week. We've already sold over 50% of the tickets. I highly predict that we will be sold out by year end. Maybe this would be a great holiday present for the woman in your life. So think about it. You can find out all of the information on bethazor.com. Just scroll down to the summit and you can read all about it there. It is life-changing for the women who attend. At least that's what all the testimonials tell me. And this will be our 6th year. So we've really honed it in and figured it out. So would love to see the ladies in your lives come and meet me and talk about real estate investing. Ciao.